I'm Aurora from EALA, and we're sitting down with Stephanie Lassalle from Marshall Street, and excited to hear a little bit more about the work you do. So let's dive right in. Tell us about Marshall Street and the work that you're doing there.
Yeah, Marshall Street is an organization that has three core programs. We focus on locally felt yet globally evident challenges in education. So we have a teacher residency program, we have a leadership institute program, and then we have Marshall CoLab, where I am the director of improvement programs. Marshall CoLab is focused on improving teaching and learning for our most vulnerable students. Our current focus and our primary focus is focusing on students with disabilities of color experiencing poverty, essentially the intersection of race, class, and ability. And we are focused on and committed to doing that in partnership with content experts, with practitioner experts, with researchers, families, students, and other key stakeholders, because part of CoLab is that co-piece. It's about co-creation, it's about community, it's about building coalitions to solve complex challenges in education, and I think we can all agree that special education is a rather complex system that requires an interdisciplinary group of people to come together to figure out how do we improve not just the outcomes of our students, but their everyday experiences in the environments in which they are served. So from 2019 until very recently, we led the networked improvement community for students with disabilities that gathered 10 public charter organizations serving more than 75,000 students. And we were tasked with bringing together this group of people to accelerate our collective impact, to try to develop solutions, taking what we know is best from the research and putting it into practice. And in doing so, we developed over 20 research-based best practices, which we rightly called the research to impact practices, because we were trying to bridge the gap between research and practice, and worked with schools to figure out how do we get these things like oral reading fluency practices to work effectively in secondary settings for students in their real communities and real contexts. From there, after we developed those practices, we've been working on spreading and scaling 3 of those in what is our Ignite network. So we work with 28 schools across 5 states. And we're focused on taking 3 of those best practices and figuring out how do we sustainably spread and scale them. So we don't want to just get them into people's classrooms and hands, but we want to help make sure that they think about the systems and the training and the everyday supports that are needed for those to become a part of the very fabric of how schools run and operate, so that we can make sure that they don't have that initiative burnout where they stop or they end at the end of our lifetime in partnership, but that they continue and sustain to see long-lasting impact for kids.
Yeah. A lot of the work of our EALA partners is very mission and vision heavy, very mission and vision oriented. What inspired you to start, what inspired you what inspired you to work in this education space?
Yeah. It's a bit of a story. I have always loved and interacted with education, but I wasn't intending to be here. My 5-year plan that I thought I had built out, just crashed and burned. So I went to the Johnson Center for Integrative Studies in my undergrad, where I designed my own emphasis. And in doing so was studying international human rights work with a focus on community-based education. And I studied abroad in Geneva. I was gonna go do the NGO, human rights work abroad at the end of my 4 years in college. And then upon returning from my semester abroad in Geneva, I got diagnosed with celiac disease, which at the time was a disqualifying condition for joining the Peace Corps, and was labeled a disability. And so here I was, kind of end of senior year, trying to ask myself, well, what do I do now? I care deeply about social justice. I care deeply about human rights. And that led me to thinking about joining the education space and really thinking about education as a human rights issue, and one that touches every aspect of our community, and one that, every child deserves an opportunity to succeed and to be seen as truly brilliant individuals who can thrive when given the right supports and the tools. And it's what drives me to my work each and every day.
I love that. And the non-conventional, the non-linear path, right, to the work, to where you are today. What are some of the most impactful strategies or programs you've seen that improve outcomes for students, especially our kiddos with learning differences and disabilities?
Yeah, I think we ended up developing these 5 collections of research-based best practice. They're focused on using data to drive equity-driven MTSS programs, secondary literacy and addressing adolescent literacy needs, supporting students with social and emotional behavioral disabilities, post-secondary pathways, and then one that's all about like collaboration and improving collaboration between general education and special education. And so when I think about like things I'm really proud of and excited about in the work we've done, like I think some of our work around building the capacity of general education and special education teaching teams to work together to serve students has been really exciting and inspiring. We've not only been able to build the capacity of special education teachers to like become more content expert focused and support their colleagues, but we've been able to build the capacity of general education teachers to think about differentiation needs for not just students with disabilities, but if they also start to think about and get curious about MLLs and children experiencing homelessness and students with chronic absenteeism. Well, what's driving their children to not be at school? So I'm both really excited about the strategies and the practices themselves, and the work that we do at Marshall CoLab and Ignite focuses on training educators in those practices and then building this kind of ecosystem of learning and knowledge sharing that centers practitioners as experts in their own communities, in their own contexts, and we partner with them to think about and study, does it work? Is it happening? If it does work, great. Like, how do we make it work better and faster and build their skill and capacity in it? And if it doesn't, why not? What can we learn about what's getting in the way? And really coaching them to think about failure as an opportunity to learn. And so it's that like pairing of both training and giving people the tools and the support and the practice, but also orienting the work to accelerating learning together and building this community of practice. And I think personally that's important to me to center practitioner experts in this, because I was a special educator for more than 10 years before I came to this work, and I was constantly feeling really alone, and like I had to innovate and I had to figure out how to make this work for my kids. And I know that there are plenty of educators out there who just need access to tools and resources. They don't have to make it all up or figure out how to do it on their own. What they need is the access to good tools and resources that are like field tested. And then they need support and partnership to figure out how to make it work for them and for their students so that their students can succeed. And I believe that we can do that work together. And I want educators to be able to have that support, because I want to keep people in the classroom. I want to keep kids learning. And I want all of our learners, but especially our more vulnerable populations, to have access to high quality education.
How does Marshall Street help schools build that teacher capacity so that they're better equipped to support their students with disabilities?
It's a great question. I think first and foremost, we are committed to lasting change. And so we think about the work that we're doing with school teams as how do we build their capacity to sustain and build systems that are outside of individual people. So when we're working with our partners, the tools that we've created, they are free. They are on our website. You can download them. I hope people will go and download them. And as much as I think they are incredibly high quality tools and resources, they need to be paired with training and coaching. That doesn't have to be us. That can be people within systems who have that content knowledge and expertise. But when we think about building educator capacity, we're thinking about giving them trainings that then connect with their coaching, that connect then with like how the organization approaches the work and talks about the work, so that it is all interconnected, right? Like we work within an educational system, an ecosystem. And so when we're talking about building educator capacity, we're thinking, what are the skills that they need? What are the habits they need? How do we build their mindsets and belief about what is possible? And in ways that think about and attend to not just building the capacity of individuals, but the system at large, because teachers will leave, staff will turn over, and the marker to us of a good system is one that can last and sustain amidst those turnover. And we see that as an opportunity to just build the collective capacity. How do we distribute leadership? How do we help everybody really like leverage their strength and leverage their why to be a part of a collective and unified solution that's going to work for kids.
I love that. It's not preventing, folks are going to come and go in different stages of their career. But is there a system, is there a structure in place to address the ebbs and flows, let's say, right?
Yeah.
Thinking about collaboration, one of the unique things about EALA, as we know, is our network of networks and our partners across sectors. What role do partnerships and collaboration, what role does that play in Marshall Street's success or their goals?
Yeah. Well, we intentionally named ourselves CoLab, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the co stands for many things for us. It's about co-creation. It's about communities. It's about connections. It's about all of these things, right? Like we really are deeply committed to this idea of doing things with, not to people, and this belief that we can do things better together. And so our like very design and the fabric of how we approach work is about partnering with school teams, with their network leadership teams, with regional teams, and then building this like learning infrastructure that allows people to be connected, to like we're always thinking about how do we attend to connection points, how do we convene people together, how do we help essentially like create a spider web, if you will, where we're not the hub and spoke, but we want people connecting with and learning more about each other and the work. If you will, I feel like we're constantly trying to like build bridges and bridge the gaps between partnerships and people. The Ignite Network is a really good example of how we're thinking about partnership and collaboration. Like we work very closely together with our school partners and our regional partners together on a quarterly basis to kind of think about what's working, what's not working. How do we get schools across Louisiana and Washington State and California to share what they're doing and what's working, to give each other tools and resources. And then we gather the leaders from our various networks alongside some of our funder partners and our like regional partners like Diverse Learner Cooperative, like Tennessee SCORE, New Jersey Children's Foundation, to talk about what we're seeing that's working and what's not working with the intent to learn with them and from them. What are we all learning? How do we need to adapt or change our approach? Because we know that like education does not look the same everywhere. We have to be willing to be adaptable and flexible. The climate is certainly changing right now. So how do we work together and learn together while supporting our practitioners on the ground to have the greatest impact that they can?
Yeah. And speaking of, change and shifts that we're seeing right now, there's a lot going on in the world of education, but what would you say is a priority or a key shift that you're really excited about, and how do you plan to adapt or leverage that at Marshall?
Yeah. There's so much happening in education, and I'm gonna maybe like date myself a little and go old school in that, like, I'm really excited about the ways in which we've been able to be innovative in breaking down silos and connecting people. I feel like when I was in the classroom a handful of years ago, I was like maybe making connections with other people in my district or like friends in my local community, but I didn't feel like I could reach a national, like a community of people and practitioners outside of my small bubble. Mm-hmm. And I think, living through the times of COVID and the pandemic, like we were forced to move into this virtual space where we connected with people and held meetings and trainings virtually. And that has really enabled us to think about how do we break down silos? How do we connect people? How do we like get people to say like, I really want to try this new like co-planning thing, but I don't understand how to make that work. I can teach them and give them tools and whatnot, but it's more powerful for me to get them in contact with teachers on the ground and school building leaders in Louisiana. And we've got people from Louisiana connecting with people in Nashville to talk about what's working and what's not working. So to me, like one of the big things that I'm just excited about is the way that we've been able to leverage and build a movement, thinking about like who's committed to this work, who wants to do this work, and how do we help them do that and build a stronger, more unified movement, because we don't have to all be trying to make the same tools and resources and solutions. We can build them and then work together to share them. A couple weeks ago, I guess earlier this year we had a learning event where, our high school teams are trying to figure out how do we build fluency passages for our secondary school teachers to use to do quick fluency activities in the classroom. And people were like, the biggest challenge that most of our teams are facing was they just didn't have the time to build materials. And so somebody was like, you know what? We got into ChatGPT and used an AI generator tool, and we wrote out this script. We tried a bunch of scripts. This is the one that works to get us the passages we need. We helped them put that into a one-pager. And now it's out there to our 20 partners or whatever trying it out to say, if you only have 5 minutes to make a fluency passage, try this, put this in a ChatGPT and enter the grade level and the topic. 8 years ago, first we weren't talking about AI in this way for sure, but we didn't have the ability to connect with people the way that we do now.
Yeah. So before you go, are there any parting words, any pieces of advice for folks listening out there for how to support our students and our educators?
Yeah. I think more than anything, first and foremost, we, Marshall CoLab, have resources and tools. They are readily available. We stand by them. We've had really good positive feedback. Please go to our website, download a resource. And then if you have questions, if you need help, if you don't know where to start, if you have feedback on how to make them better, we want to hear from you. This work is not easy, and it's messy, and it can be at times deflating, but it's also beautiful. And there are so many incredible people doing really intentional, innovative work for kids. And we will be able to do this work longer and with greater impact the more that we work together. So find our resources, check them out, reach out. But whether it's to us or somebody else, lean on your community.